Always looking for a new souffle recipe, a wonderful new flavor. So when Claudia Fleming, the pastry chef at Gramercy Tavern in New York, said that she liked to make chestnut souffle, we asked her to come to the studio and show us how. Claudia, I'm so glad you could come today.
Hi,
and
Martha.
I'm helping Claudia butter and sugar these little souffle molds.
We're doing this so that the souffle mixture rises straight up.
So do you use a canned puree of chestnut, or do you puree your own?
The canned product is really very good.
Unsweetened.
Unsweetened. To start, we're going to make a pastry cream base. And then to that, we'll add the chestnut puree, some brandy, and vanilla.
Yep.
And then fold in the egg whites, which give us that beautiful, fluffy souffle. Okay, first, measure out 3/4 cup of milk. Put it in a saucepan to scald. And as you're doing that, I'm going to measure the sugar. 3 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and lastly, we add 1/4 cup of milk. And we're going to whisk that until it's nice and smooth.
So you're going to add the salted milk to that mixture?
That's right, yeah.
Well, here's your very hot milk. Should I just pour it for you?
And I'll whisk vigorously as you do that. And now we're going to put it back on the stove and cook at a medium-high heat until it gets thick. And you want to be sure that you boil it for a couple of minutes so that you boil out the flour and the cornstarch flavor. Because the thicker your base, the more stable your souffle will be. Watch it boil for 1 minute.
Cooking the flour.
Really cooking out the flour and the cornstarch flavor so it's not pasty. We're getting there. I think we're probably there.
Would you like me to separate eggs too?
That would be perfect.
I think the recipe calls for
5 whites
and 4 egg yolks.
4 yolks.
Okay. Drop them into a stainless steel bowl.
Okay. How would you like to whisk our egg yolks into the pastry cream base? I'm going to add them slowly, one at a time, and whisk thoroughly after each addition.
So now you want to add your chestnut.
Whisk this up well.
And 1 teaspoon of vanilla.
And then whisk in 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. Okay. And there is our pastry cream base.
Should I whisk the egg whites now?
You can probably
Start.
So
you got a pinch of
I'm
salt?
just going to put a little pinch of salt in here. Okay, for stability and flavor. It's a good workout.
Oh, it is. I'll do it. I'll take over. And now 2 tablespoons of sugar.
Yep.
That makes them a little glossier.
Yes.
Oh, it looks great. Perfect. You can see how nice and shiny the egg whites are.
Taking 1/3 of the egg whites and whisking them into the base to lighten it, as we say, because this mixture here initially is too dense to take that very light mixture.
And then just fold the rest in.
Fold the rest in. And by folding, what we mean is pulling the batter from the bottom, folding it over at the top, always going in the same direction. And you don't want to overmix. It's not necessarily a terrible thing to see a few clumps of white, because overmixing is lethal for the souffle. It will not rise. Now we can fill our souffle cups. And when filling these cups, you really don't want to get any souffle mix on the side. Because if you get it on the side, then it sticks and almost seals the souffle shut and it won't rise. So you want the sides completely clean. We're going to take our thumb and just run it around the inside to help the souffles rise straight up.
Is that good?
Yep. And you also want to place them evenly apart so that the air gets distributed evenly and they rise evenly.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay, well, I'll put them in
Into
the oven for you. And,
wonderful.
And how long?
Thank you. About 8 minutes.
And you have the oven preheated to?
375. And luckily for you, you have a convection oven. That would be perfect.
Now, if you're making this for your friends and your guests, you could have the base made, couldn't you?
Exactly. The pastry cream can be made early on in the day before, and kept refrigerated. The only thing that needs to be done last minute is to whip the egg whites.
Right,
and we all saw how quick that
so
was.
within 8 or 10 minutes of serving, you just put them in.
It's a nice break in between dinner and dessert. Okay. You know, Martha, contrary to popular belief, you can open the oven door while soufflés are cooking, but very briefly. I've just turned the tray because the soufflés were browning on one side and rising a little unevenly. So I quickly turned the tray, and now they're rising perfectly.
Well, Claudia, they did work.
Yeah, I think they're ready.
Good.
It's just about perfect. Now, this is where you have to be real speedy because they do not want to wait.
And they are whisked out by the waiter. Here is our creme anglaise, but right at the table.
Right at the table. This is another thing the waiters do. Make a lovely presentation and pour in your custard sauce. And it will quickly absorb it.
Oh, wow.
And a little bit more for a little big puff. Isn't that beautiful?
And here we have the Claudia Fleming chestnut souffle, specially served to you at Gramercy Tavern in New York City. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Martha.
And I'm going to indulge.
Please be my guest.
During the holidays, when I'm strolling through the streets of New York, nothing seems to evoke the spirit and the character of the season more than the sight and smell of chestnuts roasting on the corner vendor's cart. These beautiful, smooth mahogany nuts were once in great abundance in this country, but tragically a blight in the early 1900s wiped out many of the beautiful trees. And many of the chestnuts you buy today are imported. Roasted chestnuts are a great holiday tradition. You can eat them around the fireplace on a cold winter's night, or you can use them to garnish the holiday roasted bird. This is the easiest way to roast them. You can use this pan, which is a chestnut roasting pan. It's a very lightweight metal, and it sits right on top of the gas flame. It can also sit right on top of the coals in your fireplace. And it's very nice to hear them crackling and cooking right in front of you. Now, what you do first is, with the point of a very sharp knife, make an X in the bottom of the chestnut, on the flat side of a chestnut, like that. All of these are already scored. And then place the chestnuts with the X side down in the bottom of the pan and turn the flame on low. Start them cooking and then toss them around. When they crack open, you'll know they're done. I like to do one layer at a time. The vendors are very careful with their chestnut roasting techniques, and they are very proud to give you perfectly roasted chestnuts in little brown paper bags. They're great to keep your fingers warm on a cold winter's day. These pans are available in cookware stores, gourmet stores, especially now, this time of year. Now, if you don't have a chestnut roasting pan, you can roast them in a hot oven, 400 degrees. Keep squiggling the pan back and forth, though, to turn the nuts. You can see that they're just starting to get little burn marks on them. And you can hear them starting to pop. See, one or two are already cracking open, exposing that beautiful, creamy white nut inside. If you're going to use chestnuts for stuffings or for pureeing, you'll want to score them and then steam them over boiling water. The chestnut meats will stay a lot more tender, and they won't have that kind of burnt flavor of the roasted chestnuts, not appropriate for marron glacé or sugared chestnuts, purees, and ice creams. Just be careful you don't burn them. And the smell is just like on the street corners of New York. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. One last toss, and I think they're done. Well, it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes to roast chestnuts, depending on the heat of the fire, the kind of pan you have, and the size of the chestnuts. But once they're split open like that, it's time to turn off the flame, Let them cool just a little bit and crack them open. Oh, these are perfect. You can see the steam coming out. Roasted chestnuts like this are a very good thing. Here you have it.
Perfect piping tips and much more coming up next.